Hello and welcome back to the Across the Pod NFL podcast. The NFL season is finally here and we are here to preview week one in the NFL of the 2024 season. I am, as ever, your host, Andy Davis. With me today, returning guest, he was on our Rams season preview. Back with us today is Rams fan Sam Andrews. Sam, how are things?
Yeah, good. Yeah, can't wait to the fact that we're actually going to be able to watch and be able to say that we're watching an NFL game this weekend. So yeah, glad it's back. Glad football's back.
Couldn't agree more. I mean, you get a little bit of a taster with pre-season, but you know it's just a lightweight version of what you're going to get in the real life thing. You know, whether it's watching backups, whether it's just watching starters play just one quarter, it's never the same. When you get that first NFL season, so that first game of the NFL season, the Thursday night opener, it's sort of, I think first of all makes you go, oh gosh, the year's gone ridiculously quick, but then also it's just makes you so excited ahead of the season. It really does make me so excited, and you know, it's obviously you're hoping that our team's involved as a home team, but as you experienced a couple of years ago, but it's just fantastic to have it back. It really is. I can't stress it enough just how good it is to have it back. I think as well, because it's only a 4 or 5 month season, it makes you really appreciate the games more. Whereas, you know, you've got sometimes you're watching Premier League games thinking, it's back already. It's only been a few weeks before the season ended. But with the NFL, you know, it's been so long, it makes you really appreciate every game we get. So, yeah, it's going to be very exciting stuff. And we were meant to have a third guest on today. We were meant to have Sam's podcast co-sort of podcasty, Aaron Fletcher or Fletch, but he has had a work incident, which means he is in A&E right now, so he can't make it, but he'll be back to review week one early next week as we do that. But it's our usual process, as we've done the last 2 years. Each guest who comes on, as well as myself, taking turns to go through each game of the week and predict our winners from each game. And it should be, you know, once again, a good series we're having. And we're starting off in week one. And once again, we're starting off on the Thursday night opener in Kansas City. As this time, they take on the Baltimore Ravens. Sam, as a guest, I'll let you go first on this game. Who's going to win this one?
So I've been sort of umming and ahhing with how the season opener is going to start. I think it's going to be a tasty game. I think both teams are going to come out wanting to win that game. I think we were looking at on our pod. I'm not sure if we've actually released the episode yet or not. We did a special on this, and we were talking about the opening games. And although I think in the most recent years, Chiefs have been renowned for having a slow start. And when we looked at the actual stats, I think it was something like of the last 10 games or the first 10 seasons that Andy Reid was in charge, he was 8-2 or something like that. So I don't think it's as bad as their starts are as bad as people say. Having said that, I'm going for a Baltimore Ravens win. I just think, you know, that losing that playoff, that championship game, they've got something to prove. I think as well. I feel with Derrick Henry there, you know, adding in the backfield, I just think they're just going to cause a lot of problems. And I think it'll be a bit of a revenge game for Lamar Jackson. You know, never know. You might see some form of recognition to that missed opportunity by Zay Flowers where he got it punched out of his hands. So, you know, we might see something to the tune of that. So, yeah, I'm going with a Ravens win.
Well, I'm going the opposite. I'm going the Chiefs. I just think that when you've got the home game, and you've got the fact that they're opening the banner, the Super Bowl winning banner. It's the first home game of the season in one of the loudest stadiums in the whole NFL. For me, the loudest, and certainly when I experienced it, it was definitely the loudest. I just think all that mixed together is just gonna, you know, it's just gonna give the Chiefs that extra edge. Now, I said it before, and I think if you haven't yet listened to our predictions episode, do pause this or fast forward about 2 minutes. But spoiler alert, I did say the Ravens would beat the Chiefs in the playoffs. So I do think the Ravens will get their revenge come, you know, divisional round or championship game. But I just think the fact that it's week one, it's, you know, the home opener, all the Super Bowl sort of banner stuff. I do think overall that's going to ultimately lead atmosphere-wise, going to give them the edge. And this goes against recent trends because in recent years, the Chiefs lost last year, the Rams lost, as you know, Sam, the year before that, and people like the Patriots lost in 2017, and there's been other ones as well where there's been a few in recent years teams who won a Super Bowl that have actually lost their opener. But I just think the Chiefs will win this. I don't expect them to go all the way this year, but I just think that this game alone, I think they'll be right up for it. And I think going on to home advantages, I might as well go on to Friday because we are talking about the first ever NFL game in Brazil as the Eagles take on the Packers. And I just think that it's the same thing. That's why I wanted to go into so quickly, was because the Eagles at home is such an advantage. Their stadium, their fan base. But to have it at a neutral site, I think it's going to give Green Bay the edge. So I'm going to give the Packers a win on this one. I just feel like if this is in Philadelphia, I would be saying probably an Eagles win just because of that home advantage. But I just feel like, that's going to give an all-round neutral sort of element to it. It's going to be sort of new players on the offensive line, particularly at centre. That might cause some teething problems with the connection between him and Hurts. And I just feel like the Packers are in a real good place right now with their young receiving core. So I'm going to give the win to the Packers. What about you, Sam?
I've also gone Packers as well. I think that the way that they played last season, I think not a lot of people were expecting them to be as good as they were, and I think they're just going to go from strength to strength. They finally added obviously brought in Josh Jacobs into their into the backfield, which I think is just going to elevate the team. They've worked on a lot of bringing in a lot of have brought in a couple of defensive players. I know they brought in, was it Edgerrin Cooper, who's the linebacker for them, who's obviously a high prospect player. And I just think, there's, like I say, it's that young wide receiver core. Jordan Love seems to already have a really good relationship with all three of them, which is obviously a benefit. Luke Musgrave as well, he was playing really well, another player who had a great season. And I think that idea of having a neutral venue for them is going to play a big part in sort of, I want to say the Eagles' downfall. I think it'll be a great match, and I think actually it'll probably be quite entertaining. But I think a Packers win seems not expected result, but just seems like the result that's probably going to happen.
Yeah, I think I actually found this one of the hardest to call. I think it's definitely, if you look at the matches, now I haven't looked at the betting odds, but I wouldn't be surprised if this is the closest margin in terms of between the two teams, because I'm looking at the other games and I can think of just more genuine reasons why teams could win. I just feel like this is. I also had the Packers winning all the time because of the neutral advantage thing, but I could so easily see the Eagles winning this as well. And of course, this will be a good one for us because, depends how people live their weeks and their weekends. But this is going to be a Friday night, which means early hours Saturday morning, so you can watch an NFL game at 1 a.m. in the morning. And unless you do work weekends, you're not having to worry about work the next day, which I love. Mm-hmm. I mean, I'll be watching it probably. I'm going to record it on Sky and watch it in the morning. But I think the fact that you got a game, which will be, I think it's 1 a.m. in the UK, to have that for us, and you haven't got work in the morning, it's just so good. And I think, especially for a season opener, it's fantastic. And I think that it's what I'm looking forward to a lot, and seeing how the Brazil game is done. I mean, it's the first ever international game in Brazil, but also the first international game played in week 1, which is a new thing as well. So I think it's a feeder into Roger Goodell's plan to have NFL go global. And I think I've mentioned it before, Neil Reynolds has talked about it before, how they want the NFL to turn into the F1. And I just feel like this could be, the test they need to see whether they can have a team internationally, so early on in the year. So it should be a good game. Of course, the fans aren't allowed to wear green. So I'm guessing the teams would. So I'm guessing
that's the interesting part. You're not allowed to wear green in that stadium, are you? Because it's is it linked to the Corinthians? The rivalry with the Corinthians, is it?
Yeah, I want to say it's or Palmeiras or something like that. There's a green team that's rivals to Sao Paulo, and I don't know who that is. Apologies for those who are expecting some sort of Brazilian football knowledge from me. But I think that is why. But so my guess is we'll see the black, Eagles jersey against maybe the white Packers jersey. That's my guess we're going to see, because if the fans can't wear green, surely the players can't wear green. So my only thinking is maybe you'll see the white and gold or yellow, however you see it, Packers jersey and uniform combination, and maybe the all black Eagles jersey. But then I think that's got a little bit of green on it. So I don't know how they go about that, because there's no other option really, because there's no other jersey they can either of them can wear that hasn't got a little bit of green on it. So that's how I think it will be done. But I don't know whether they'll just not bother with the players as much, because they're not the ones that are going out on the street.
Yeah. Yeah, I think I was just having a quick look at the spread, and it's -2.5. Well, -2.5 is the spread in favour of the Eagles. So yeah, it's a very, very tight one to call by the looks of it. So it's going to be a field goal in it, but the Eagles are down as the favourites for it.
Interesting. I'm surprised by that. Moving on to Sunday, the first lot of the 6 p.m. slate, 1 p.m. Eastern, if you are listening in America, is in Atlanta. For the only game, the only game of the whole schedule this week where you got both teams starting quarterbacks that weren't starting for the team this time last year. They take on the Steelers, as it is Kirk Cousins and Russell Wilson's debuts. I think Russell Wilson's all set to play now. I think even if it's Justin Fields, it'd be the same thing. So yeah, interesting one. Really interesting one. Actually, this one's really intriguing me, because I want to see how both quarterbacks look with new teams. I want to see how Wilson looks with an actual competent front office. He hasn't had that since he left the Seahawks. And then the Falcons, Kirk Cousins was, I'm intrigued how he's going to react to the whole Michael Penix thing and that whole dynamic, which I think could be fine. I think he'll start every game, but I do have him winning this one. I just feel like the only reason I'm doing it is purely on the fact that the Steelers always start slowly. They always seem to lose week one, which they're going to need to start winning games early this year, because their schedule, as you mentioned in the Steelers episode in our season previews, they got an awful run from weeks 12 onwards. So I think, obviously Mike Tomlin you trust, but I think that Falcons team, with the weapons they've got, they're at home as well. I'm going to give the Falcons the edge. How about you, Sam?
Yeah, I've got a Falcons win. I've got quite a soft spot for the Falcons, because I'm a huge Bijan Robinson fan. So knowing going and watching him last year, and seeing how he was misused is the best way. I don't think he was used the way he should have been. And the fact that they've got the new head coach is Raheem Morris, is our old defensive coordinator, and their offensive coach is our old quarterback coach. So there's a lot of links with with Atlanta, and I just think adding Kirk Cousins to that offense with a defense that was, apart from the edge rush, was always relatively good. I just think they're going to go up another level. I think they've got the weapons there. You've got the likes of, like I said, mentioned Bijan Robinson, Drake London, Kyle Pitts, although I know he's out for the first game now. Well, he's questionable. I don't know if he's actually officially out yet, but he is questionable. He didn't practice. But I just think, they've got a lot of positives going into this season. And if they start using Bijan Robinson the way that I watched him at Texas, they've got a real good player on their hands who can, I think can rival CMC as being one of the best running backs in the league. So, I just think the Falcons are going to have a lot. I still don't think that the Steelers have quite worked out what they want to do in terms of offense. Obviously, I know they've chosen Russell Wilson. I honestly don't think Russell's going to be any good there. I think he's going to be replaced by week 4. They've obviously lost a lot of pieces. They lost Deontay Johnson on offense. So they're now relying on the likes of Roman Wilson and George Pickens and that step up. Warren's obviously been out injured, and it's just, I think there's just too many different things going on in Pittsburgh that's not going to play in their favor. And like you mentioned, they've already had they always have a slow start. I just think the Falcons are going to run away with this, I think.
You mentioned the Falcons there and Kyle Pitts. I want to read the report from Sleeper app. It says Falcons tight end Kyle Pitts is dealing with a hamstring injury and will be limited at practice today, per head coach Raheem Morris. So it looks like he may not start, but I think he got enough there. And I think Bijan Robinson, as you said exactly, is set to ball out because Arthur Smith last year completely misused that situation. I mean, I like Tiger Algier, and I think he is certainly one of the best RB2s in my opinion. I think he could be an RB1 somewhere, but I think we'll see Robertson get more snaps, get more involved, and I think we'll see him ball out completely. And I think both teams really are this whole situation where, you know, they got a fair few wins last year. They were, well, to see this got to the playoffs. The Falcons were in that conversation with mediocre quarterbacks. Now you give the Steelers Russell Wilson. Now you give, who did have 25 touchdowns, 8 picks last year, so still not a bad season for him. And the Falcons, of course, were all the whole thing with, you know, Desmond Ridder, and that was not fun to watch. You know, anyone who went to the UK game at Wembley between the Falcons and the Jags, they saw Desmond Ridder up close, and they saw just how limited he is at the position. So I think you give both these teams good quarterbacks. Fully aware that we said the same thing about the Broncos when they got in Russell Wilson to replace not Zach Wilson, Drew Lock, and that didn't work out well. So it could easily go that way. But I just have faith in Russ. I said they'll be the 8th seed in our predictions. I think they'll be really in that conversation to make the playoffs. But I do have them losing in week 1. Moving on to our next game, which is Buffalo taking on the Cardinals at home. Buffalo win. Simple as. They're at home. They got a better team. And that's all I can really say on that one. That's a really short summary for the Buffalo.
Yeah, I fully agree. I think it's a Buffalo win. I do think, you know, Arizona is still trying to build that team. I mean, I know obviously getting Kyler Murray back's a great thing. Trey McBride's already there. Adding Marvin Harrison Jr. is obviously a massive win. I just think that they've still got a way to go before they can be thinking about beating teams like the Buffalo Bills. But, you know, I think they'll give it a good go. And I know in our NFC West podcast that we've done before, I think that from our resident Cardinals fan, he is just wanting to see heart, and you get that from the Cardinals for that. Well, last year you did, and I think it'll continue into this year. I think they'll show a lot of heart. They just won't necessarily get the results they want. Sort of a bit like how the Lions were in their first season under Dan Campbell, just sort of doing, you know, playing great football, but just never getting that result that they wanted.
I think there's a lot of heat about the Cardinals. There's a lot of talk about them in a positive way. I mean, on Good Morning Football, when they did I've not watched the MVP one yet, but the predictions they do every year for the AFC, NFC division winners and the wildcard teams, there's a few of them had the Cardinals, and there's been a lot of people who are talking about Marvin Harrison maybe having a Jamar Chase sort of Joe Burrow with Kyler Murray sort of esque first year together. They absolutely ball out. I think you're right. I think they'll be still. I put them fourth in the NFC West in our predictions episode, but I just feel that they'll be maybe the 4th place team with the most wins. I think it's them or the Browns from top of my head. If I had to do a best 4th place team, I think the Cardinals are definitely one of them. I think they are a contender for one of the worst to first teams, we could say. I think there's always one each year. The Bengals are probably that team who go from 4th to 1st most likely. But I think the Cardinals definitely are being a little bit slept on. But I still think they'll come a bit short of the playoffs. Now, next up is a game that I am very excited for. For one man and one man only, that is Caleb Williams as the Bears take on the Titans. Sam, who is winning this game in Soldier Field?
Well, I mean, at the start of the season, you would have had no doubt in me saying the Bears. The only thing that's really putting me on edge now about where I'm going to go with this is the fact that the Titans have done so much on defense, that just makes me think that they could be one of these teams that sneaks wins with just holding out games. Not conceding many points. Obviously adding L'Jarius Sneed to the backfield, and also, I mean, a personal gripe of mine losing Ernest Jones with a terrible trade over to the Titans. I just think that they could be a team that surprises a lot of people. I had them not doing particularly very well, but I think they could be one that surprises. And I think it'll be a lot tighter than especially a lot of the other like a lot of the predictions are saying. But I am still going with a Bears win. I don't think it'll be comfortable. I don't think it'll be a Caleb masterpiece. First game in the NFL. I just don't think it's going to be the big ball out that we expect him to, or that everyone's sort of touting him to do. But I think he'll get them over the line. I think he's got enough weapons around him and enough to get them over the line. But I think it's going to be 3 points in it. I think they'll just about scrape through.
Well, I've gone for the Titans to win. I think we saw them last year when they beat the Dolphins, that massive comeback. They like to spoil the party, and they're going to spoil the party in week one. In typical Bears fashion, they're going to get their hopes up. And I think ultimately, they'll still have a good season. But I think that week one, it's going to be a bit of a welcome to the NFL moment for Caleb Williams. I think that will be his moment where, because there's a lot of talk about him in the off-season, and off the Hard Knocks cameras are there, and he's right now very confident. But I think this could be a game that, I won't say humbles him, but just makes him realize, right, okay, this is the NFL. This is what I'm in for. And I think, in a way, it's probably a good thing for the Bears. I know you can start off well and that's it, but I think sometimes you need that, almost like that down game, just to get you to improve.
Tempering reality, I think, is probably the term. Really. Yeah, I think it's, like I say, it was one of those where I wasn't too sure about, and I've gone with the spread based upon the fact that the weapons he has. To be the number one pick going into the season, and to be able to say that you've got, Keenan Allen, DJ Moore, Cole Kmet, DeAndre Swift, all in your corner. It's just, it has everything there, but I just think, I just think it'll be one of those games where it won't be high scoring, and I think they'll just scrape it. But yeah, it wouldn't surprise me if Tennessee went on and won that game. Obviously they've got two experienced wide receivers. Will Levis, I think, is getting slept on quite a lot just because he's he's the Mayo man. He's not the big flashy guy. And yeah, obviously Tony Pollard has joined the Titans, but I just think that defense could start causing a lot of problems. It was already a good defense, and I think now it's just going to get a lot better. So yeah, this one for me was the toughest one to call as to who to pick, but I went with the spread.
Yeah, fair enough. This one on paper should be easy. Bengals Patriots, but the Bengals, like their AFC North counterpart Steelers, they always seem to start badly. I can't think when they last won a first home game. They lost last year to the Browns. They lost the year they went to the Super Bowl, I believe, as well. So, but I think they also get them because they are playing the Patriots. I think the Patriots are going to, I think when you have a team who's, one of the worst in the league, they have these games where they either win it by surprise or they run a good team close. I think the Bengals will be good this year if Burrow stays healthy. And I just feel like week one, they may make it a lot closer than people would think. Again, against the spread, it might be a lot more against their favour than maybe what I'm saying. But I just feel like they'll be bad this year. They'll be really bad. But I think week one they could cause a little bit of a problem. But I think the Bengals still win. I think ultimately that they'll be even without Chase, who looks like he's not going to play because he's not even practiced yet. But I think you've got enough there. You've got T. Higgins. You've got. I think Chase Brown could have a really good year as either him or Zach Moss as the number one back in Cincinnati, and I think that defense is probably the worst in that division they're in. But Lou Anarumo is maybe one of the best DCs in the whole league, so I think they'll get it done. But I don't think it'll be pretty. I think it could be something like 9-6 to the Bengals or 12-7. I think it could be a real low-scoring, ugly game. But I'm going to get the Bengals the edge.
Yeah, I mean the spread for just going based upon the one that I've got in front of me. I obviously don't want to name names in terms of companies, but just the company that I'm using that I'm just looking at is has the Bengals as a 7.5 spread, which seems quite as it's the highest I think out of all the Sunday games. Bar I think the Bills is the only one that's closest. So yeah, it's the highest of the Sunday games.
Sorry, Sam, I'm just going to interrupt you a second because literally just as I finished talking, my phone comes up and says Bengals wide receiver Jamar Chase is
walking out for us.
So you can't like the timing on that one. Literally, that is spooky stuff. Like that is really spooky. That is the algorithm really coming to home. But so that might change your prediction. I don't know what you were planning before I told you that news.
I'm still going with the Bengals win. I think they've got enough weapons there to be able to beat the Patriots. Like I say, it's probably not going to be necessarily the best game or the highest scoring game. I think, Zach Moss and Chase Brown, both are good running backs who could light it up. T. Higgins, again, I think he's for any of for at least half of the NFL teams. I mean, he could be pushing for a wide receiver one. I think he does have that ability. I'd arguably say he's probably one of the higher wide receiver twos in the league. And I think the other one that they've got at the moment is Iavasis, I think is their starting wide receiver 3. So, he's going to be one that's probably to watch. But I mean, from remembering from last year, I think, was it Tanner Hudson, who's the starting tight end? Him and Burrow seemed to have quite a good relationship early on when he started. So again, that's probably one player to look out for this year. But yeah, I've got the Patriots getting the number 1 pick this year. I just think they're going to be absolutely dreadful. And again, apologies to Carl and DJ. I know if you're listening, sorry, you already know my feelings on the Patriots this year. But yeah, I think, like I say, it's without Chase. I think there is the possibility that it could be low scoring. But yeah, I can't see the Patriots getting an upset in week 1.
No, I don't believe so. And before I forget as well, you have alluded to it then, do check out the podcast that Sam's part of, whether that's Heard of the Line or College Football UK. Whilst we're here, I'm going to give a chance quickly just to plug your podcast, just to tell listeners how they can listen to your work and maybe what to look forward to in the next week or two on the shows.
Yeah, so on Heard of the Line, obviously we are splitting into 2, so we're going to be having a preview and a review show that's going to be released. Let me get this right. Tuesday and Friday, I believe. So we'll be able to you'll be able to listen to either of those 2 shows with a mixture of people on there. For College Football UK, we are going to be just sticking with the one show, which will be a preview review. And at some point this week, we are going to be having a discussion. Hopefully, me and Fletch can get in, where you might see, because we've got a triple header this week. Obviously, not come on to the NFL game yet, but the college games. You've got obviously my Texas Longhorns and Fletcher's Michigan Wolverines face each other this week, and we also have our own divisions from the group of 5. I've got the Sun Belt. He's got the MAC, I believe it is, or the Midwest, and he has chosen a team in there, or he's chosen the new boys in the division in the FCS, the top college divisions, Kennesaw State, and they actually play against my other team that I've chosen, which is the Louisiana Raging Cajuns. So it's a triple header for us this week. So yeah, but either way, you can find us on sort of any of the platforms. You can either listen to us on audio on Apple or Spotify, or you can watch us on YouTube. We're all available on all of them, and just head over to the AAW Network on Twitter and I believe on Instagram.
Fantastic. And if you are watching on YouTube, you can see his Twitter handle there, SamRam47. So those who are listening rather than watching, find him on there, and that's how you can find him on Twitter. Now, I said what I think might be the lowest scoring game of the whole week in the Bengals Patriots. I'm going to go next up for what I think will be the highest scoring game of the entire week. What I think will be the best game of the week. I'm going for the Houston Texans taking on or traveling to the Indianapolis Colts as my game of the week. I think this game is going to be absolutely fantastic. I think we could see 30-something to 30-something. I think Richardson and Stroud are both going to absolutely ball out. Michael Pittman, or whether it's Tank Dell or Stephon Diggs or or anyone, I think this is going to be a fantastic game. I don't think either defenses are elite, so I think that could open up a lot of high-scoring advantages for these teams. And I think overall we're going to see the Texans win it, but I think it's going to be one of those ones where Richardson and Stroud have 3 or 4 touchdowns each, only 1 or less interception, over 300 yards each. Richardson probably balls out more in the running game. Stroud just balls out more in the passing game. And I think this is going to be a fantastic occasion at Lucas Oil Stadium. Sam, how are you seeing this one?
I agree. I think this could be. I mean, the over/under for this game is 49, which I think is quite low. I think I'd be all over taking that as the over, because I think that this could be, like you say, this could be a 39-36 game, sort of high scoring, just 2 teams just going absolutely nuts. Probably Anthony Richardson showing what he can do with his feet. Probably wouldn't be surprised if he goes close to 100 yards in rushing, to be honest, if miles over. I think, they've both got such electric offenses that, and I think that Houston, I think they both have okay defenses. I think there's, like you say, there's areas for improvement, and I think Texans have certainly done a lot in the off season in terms of trying to improve it. But I think, I've actually got the Texans as my dark horses for the Super Bowl. I really like their offense. I think it's, and if Stroud can do what he did last season with the addition of Diggs, a healthy Tank Dell, Joe Mixon in the backfield, they could wreak havoc. Obviously, the defense is still yet to be proven as to whether it can withstand a Super Bowl charge. But I'm going with Houston on this. I think they'll just about win that. Like I say, a 39-36 sort of game with a Houston win.
I said it before in our predictions episode. I think everyone needs to calm down on Stroud here. I mean, I did put him in my top 5 quarterbacks in the league, but I'm aware that he's only had especially his one season have been good, and I think it's been great so far, and obviously he's been given added weapons. But Stefon Diggs isn't exactly someone who's going to unite a locker room. Often the case, he seems to make it worse. But being the honeymoon period, he might be all right year one. But I just feel they're still going to win the division. I think they'll still maybe even win a playoff game. But I just don't see him going all the way. I think there's definitely limitations. I think the defense, maybe I'm giving them a harsh stick because I think they are pretty good and they've added players to it as well. But I just don't know whether it would hold up against Patrick Mahomes or against, on his day, Josh Allen or Joe Burrow, personally. But I think they'll still have a good year, but I just don't think it'll be quite the ending that some are saying. Which may well be the case for my team, the Dolphins, who are our next game. They host the Jags. I'm probably going to regret saying this. This is probably, I think, the easiest game to call of the week. I really do. I think it's a tough one to call because, there's a lot of games where I'm quite in the middle about, but the Chiefs is probably the one I'm second most confident about. But I'm really confident of a win against Jags at home. I know friends of the show, Baldy and the Big Fella, are going to be particularly Chris, the Big Fella. He's obviously a Jags fan, and he would be raging his TV right now, or his Spotify playlist if he hears me slagging off the Jags. I think they're distinctly average, and I just think the Dolphins at home, week 1 in the sun, which I know both teams like the sun, but I just feel Dolphins in weeks 1 to 10 especially, and especially at home, are almost a lock to win games unless they're playing the Niners or the Lions or something like that. But I just feel, the Dolphins, will win this. I'm not going to say comfortably, but I'm just very confident of a win for this one. Maybe something, I think I put 34-17, which sounds quite comfortable, to be fair. But I think ultimately they're going to get the win, and it's going to be a great start to our season. Sam, as the neutral involved in this game, win, loss, or not win, loss, or tie, who's winning this game?
I've got the Dolphins winning this. I think, like you say, I think the Jags are distinctly average. I think they've obviously losing Calvin Ridley, although he didn't do a lot for the Jags, is a loss. I mean, obviously their second wide receiver now is Gabe Davis, a player I absolutely loved in Bills, but I know that he's not. He's a boom or bust player. He either scores really well or he does absolutely nothing in a game. And we still, they've added Brian Thomas, who I think is going to be a good wide receiver, but again, first season wide receivers, it's very rare that, they pop off. I mean, we've had a few over the years. I mean, obviously Jamar Chase and Puka Nakua, but I don't think that, it's not always as easy as it can be for wide receivers to do as well as we expect them to. But I think he could be a good player for the future. It's just there's so many individually very good players in the Jags, but they just never seem to work. And I don't know what it is. I don't know whether it's the coaching. I don't know if it's just they don't work well together in the scheme. I just don't know. I mean, Travis Etienne for me has been an absolute, excellent running back, but last year he couldn't buy a touchdown at times. So it was just, I mean, there was that famous where he was on the 1 yard line and he had 3 goes at it and couldn't do it. So I just think that they always manage to disappoint, and I think they're going to disappoint again this season. So I think Miami are just going to be Miami, and if they can keep Devon A-Chain fit, they can obviously include the likes of Mostert, and especially if OBJ can contribute as a wide receiver 3 for you, I just think he could be another player that could be a difference maker. As long as you can sort out your defense and it doesn't fall apart sometimes, which you can do, I could see you going a long way this season. So, but this game definitely a Miami win.
Yeah, it's exciting times, and I think this is going to be a good season. I really do. And I think week 1's going to get off to a bang, and it should be a great occasion. I'm looking forward to it. I've got my first Sunday. Red Zone on one device, Game Pass on the other. Watching the Dolphins game is going to be a fantastic day. And it's I just can't wait. I really just can't wait for it, especially because Game Pass has now reintroduced downloading games, so I can now watch games, the late games on my commute to work, which I'm very excited for because that was something I missed last year a lot. Now this game is on paper it's one of the stinkiest games, but it could be a classic. You never know. As the Saints take on the Panthers, I don't think this game needs much talking about. I think both teams are bad. They're going to be bad. Going to give the Saints a win just because they're home, but I think both teams are just really, really bad. Yeah,
I agree. Saints will win this just purely because I think the Panthers are trash. Again, I've got them as a top 3 pick, so I just don't think they're going to be in well. But that doesn't necessarily. I mean, the Saints, I think, are just going to be terrible as well. I think they're. Someone I know is in one of our chats. He's a Saints fan. I think he has them getting a positive season, over 500 season. I just cannot see it this year. I just think they're going to be. Derek Carr's just terrible.
Well, I had the misfortune of taking him on one of my fantasy leagues. It was one of the leagues I'm in, JMB Bowl. It's I want to say a 22, 23 person league, and I waited too long to get a quarterback, and it was either him or Bill Cosby I had to take. So it was it was a tough choice, but I went for Derek Carr. But I think, I would love to have had someone else, but it was slim pickings at that point. I think the next game, to be honest, is also equally as bad. Vikings Giants. I'm going to give the Vikings a win. I think Sam Darnold won't be that good in Minnesota, but I think this could be one of the ones where he does all right. Justin Jefferson, I think he could be. I think this will be his best game of the season. I think stats-wise, I think he'll probably have over 200, 300 yards. He'll probably have 3 touchdowns, maybe 1 pick. But I think Jefferson will bail him out a lot with his catches and yards after catch. So I'm going to give the Vikings win because I just think the Giants are just that bad. I don't think they've got any reason why, even though they're home, I just don't see them at all winning this game.
Yeah, I agree. I think the Vikings are just going to be, again, they have too many pieces on offense that they can't not win. I mean, again, adding Aaron Jones into that running back is just going to help them out massively. I think this is probably one of the best offenses that you can have a relatively average quarterback in. I think it would have been for me. It would have been the perfect one of the best offenses for a rookie to go into in your first season, where you're not expected to necessarily be amazing, but good enough to be able to get a few wins. So I think Sam Darnold will do all right, but like I say, I think he's going to get bailed out a lot by Addison and Jefferson and Jones in the backfield. And again, just to round off my top three picks, I have the Giants going top three as well. So I just think they're just, Daniel Jones has got that massive contract for God knows what reason, and I just think they're going to be bad again. But again, I don't see this being a high scoring game. I think it'll be low scoring, and I think it'll be, just another bad. It was a game that I really couldn't care less about watching, to be honest.
I'm only watching this on Red Zone. That's the only reason why I'm going to have it on is purely because Red Zone. There's no way that anyone, unless you're a Giants or Vikings fan, are going to ever watch this game. The only way you're watching it, if you're not a Vikings or Giants fan and not watching it on Red Zone, watching that game alone, is if all the other games finish or it's an absolute classic and it's like, I don't know, someone's watching the coverage in Cincinnati and the game's over by the time the fourth quarter starts in New York. I think people would turn it, if they see it's like 25-21 or 31-20, I think they would then, I think otherwise there's no chance anyone is in their right mind, picking them to win. And I know this will irk one of our listeners who did comment on our recent post in Sean. He had a little spout with Steve, who came on the predictions episode, about their thoughts on the Giants. Steve did pick them to have the worst record in 2024. And Sean, stood his ground and backed his team, which we all like to do as fans. Moving on to the latest. If it's the Sean, is it Sean who's on the hurdle of the line as well? Because if it is, I'm assuming it is that Sean. It is. Yeah, it's your co-host at the Sleep and Work Network.
Yeah, I would, and this is for everyone who's listening. And again, it's not necessarily a plug, but it does sort of work quite well in our favour. We did a bit of a hot takes on our pod this week that's coming out. I think it's actually already out. And check out Sean's take on the Giants. It is. I think it's the best. If it comes off, it will be the best hot take I'll have ever heard. So I would highly recommend going and giving it a listen, and listen out for his hot take.
Well, so first thing I'm doing after this podcast ends, I'm going to go to the gym. I'm going to download it before I leave on my Spotify, and I'm going to listen to that whilst at the gym. I think that's something I really want to listen to, because that sounds like it's great stuff. It really does. As I said before, we're moving on to the latest slate, the first of two 9:05 p.m. games in the UK. First of all is the game as the Chargers host the Raiders. I think the Raiders win this. I think Harbaugh will do good for the Chargers as head coach, but I don't believe in week one. In this season, I don't believe certainly it'll be in week one. So I think there'll be some teething problems there, and I think the Raiders, whilst I'm not convinced on Antonio Pierce as head coach, I think he gets a win here. Something like 17-14 or 20-10 or something like that kind of margin. So I'm going to give the Raiders the win. Sam, what are you picking for this game?
I thought this was a rogue pick, actually, based upon everything that I've looked at. We're doing on Sleeper. There's a Pick'ems, loads of Pick'ems leagues, and it has the Chargers as 61% win probability, which is quite high, I thought. And I just think that the only thing that I can think of, the reason why people have picked so favorably on the Chargers is the fact of Justin Herbert. That's the only reason, because they brought in two completely new running backs. They've got 1.5 brand new. Well, got one brand new rookie wide receiver in Ladd McConkey, who I think by the end of the season is going to be brilliant. Don't get me wrong. I think he's going to be a really good wide receiver. I think he could be the surprise. One of the surprise wide receivers this year. I just don't see any, there's nothing I look at with the Chargers and think, oh yeah, they look good. They look like they're going to be good. They've got two running backs who have spent between them probably about 60% of their NFL career on the sidelines, just injured. And none of their wide receivers at the moment I can see are wide receiver ones, and probably are just wide receiver twos. And their defense was absolutely awful last year. I don't think they've necessarily improved it. They've had all the issues with Joey Bosa and that in the off season. I just think, I don't know how you can favor them so much. And I just think this could be the Raiders will just about scrape a win, but I think that they will win. I think they've got a lot more going for them. I know that they've chosen Gardner Minshew as their as their quarterback. They've still got Devontae Adams. They've still got, a good set of players. I think, Zamir White is a good running back. I think he'll do quite well this year. And they've still got a relatively solid defense. I mean, obviously Max Crosby being the pick of the bunch. So yeah, I don't understand why there's such favoritism for the Chargers, and I don't know if it's like a bit probably one of those, oh well, it's a Harvard, they're going to win sort of thing. So yeah, but I've gone for the Raiders. I think it'll be a bit more, I suppose, based upon the predictions and everything. This would be my shock, I suppose, but it doesn't feel like a shock.
Now, next up is the next and the second of two 9:05 games as the Seahawks host the Broncos. Now, I am really excited to see how Bo Nix does. I think you should never, ever get excited over a preseason game, but that one he played even where he made, I think, 2 touchdown passes, over 200 yards. And I really want to see how he does because with Sean Payton, a guy who basically helped Drew Brees' career, but I think that's what it's deemed as. But if you have Russell Wilson, it doesn't work out, and you go and get your guy, he doesn't work out, then I think we'll see a similar thing to what we saw with Brady and Belichick. That people go, oh, actually, it wasn't Belichick, it was Brady all along. And I think what we could see, if he can't get best out of Bo Nix, who he's chosen as this guy, seen as quarterback whisperer, 5 wins out of 5 with Teddy Bridgewater a few years ago when he was a backup at the Saints. If he doesn't work out at the Broncos, and I think Sean Payton may have a hard time keeping his job, but also may have a hard time getting a new job. Now, I'm fully aware that he, as I mentioned before, got Russell Wilson to throw for 26 touchdowns, 8 picks. That's not a bad return. So I think he's got the ability to, and I think Bo Nix has all the potential, had a lot of years in college to get that experience under his belt. And I do think they may struggle this year, but they'll do fine eventually. But I'm going to give the Seahawks a win. They're at home, hostile environment, DK Metcalf, Jackson Smith and Jigba, a new head coach, which could cause some problems for them since his first game being a head coach. But I think, one thing he bled in Baltimore with defense, I think that could be the one that wins in the game. Something like 16-12 or maybe 24-17 or something like that. But I think the Seahawks win this game. But again, probably one of the hardest to call. Sam, who are you picking for this one?
Yeah, Seahawks all day. I think, we mentioned before about the fact that, it's new players coming into the league. I think that it isn't going to be the expectation that Bo Nix is going to do like the league up. I think he's, if he does well under Payton, then obviously great. And I do want to see him do well. I do quite like Bo Nix, but yeah, for me, it's Seahawks all day. It doesn't seem like me personally, I don't see it as a close call. I think just the Seahawks have just got a better offense. They've got a very solid defense, and they've fixed up their D-line with adding Byron Murphy, who I think is going to be a big player this year. So yeah, Seahawks all day for me.
And heading on to the slightly later games of 9:25 p.m. in the UK. First one is a big one for Tom Brady, as he has his first ever NFL regular season game he'll be announcing as the Dallas Cowboys travel to the Cleveland Browns. Sam, for you, who's winning this one?
Based upon your predictions, this is probably going to be one where we don't agree. I have gone for a Cleveland Browns win.
Oh, wow. Okay, I'll go for the Cowboys.
And I think that Cleveland are going to be very good this year. I think for me, I've got them down as being one of the playoff teams. So I was surprised that he had them down as finishing 4th. But yeah, I have a feeling they're going to do really well. I think, there's not been too much change in their team as a whole. I think, Deshaun Watson's had a year under his belt, so he can work on that. Jerome Ford, I think, is a great running back as a plug-in for while Chubb's still recovering. And I think Cooper and Judy as a pairing and Njoku, I just think that their offense is really good. And personally, I think they have one of the best defenses in the league. So I think that's going to play a part. I think their defense is just going to prevent the Dallas offense from being as electric as we know it can be, especially that relationship between CeeDee Lamb, especially now he's been paid, and Dak Prescott and Jake Ferguson. I also think that their team isn't as well put together on offense as you would expect. I know they obviously Michael Gallup retired, and they've essentially got Brandon Cooks, and they've had to bring in Jalen Tolbert. I think has finally got the step up this year. Zeke they've obviously brought back because they had no other running backs, and obviously got Ricky Dowdle, and I think they've brought in someone else at running back as well, who was Dalvin Cook. That was it. I think they're going to still make Dallas is still going to make playoffs. I don't want to sort of slate on Dallas at all or the Cowboys, but I don't think they're going to be as good as they've expected to be. I think their defense is going to be their saving grace, I think, this year. And I just think that Cleveland Browns will sneak a win here. And I like the Browns as a team. I think they're a solid team, and I think I see this being a close game, maybe sort of like a 24-21 sort of game, not particularly high scoring, but I think the Cleveland Browns will win it.
See, I think if Deshaun Watson was in Cleveland at the same kind of level as play as he was, particularly in 2019-20 at the Texans, for me, they're arguably Super Bowl favorites, or if not, at least Super Bowl contenders. But we just haven't seen him at all doing it in Cleveland as quarterback. Ever since the stuff came out off the field and they made the move to get him, giving up the 3 first rounders, I believe it was, the $200 million or more guaranteed money, he hasn't been that guy at all. Insert the meme of that guy. He goes, "You're not that guy. You're not that guy." I think that is exactly what the NFL fans are saying to Deshaun Watson. And I think soon it's going to be what the Browns front office are saying to Deshaun Watson himself. I think he's got to be careful here. At some point, he's got a lot of dead cap, a lot of cap space each year taken up. But I wouldn't be surprised if the way he goes this year, if it goes like it has the last 2 years, I think he straight away, I think they could cut their losses and just think, right, this guy's being too much of a media distraction. He's not performing well enough on the field. We're going to let you go, mate. And I think if he gets injured again and we think maybe it's not like Jameis Winston starts over him and plays well, I don't think they'll think, oh, Jameis Winston, is our guy for the future. But I think they'll make him think, right, let's go and get a young quarterback. And I'm not going to say worry for him because I don't really want him to do well. But at the same time, I just feel like the Browns' issues at quarterback and the fact that Nick Chubb is not going to be there for the first 4 weeks, I think all around will give the Cowboys the edge. And I think this is actually I found one of my easier picks to make personally, because I think the Cowboys, even though they're on the road, which has been a problem for them in recent years, I just think the Dallas defense is as good as the Browns defense, but I think the offense is way more competent in Dallas than it is in Cleveland with Watson at quarterback. So going to give Dallas the edge, but I think, it should be a great game. And I think it's a good one for Brady to do first. I think he'll do really good as an announcer. And I think this will be a good one to listen to see how he does. Final one before the late games is Washington traveling to the Buccaneers, take on the Tampa Bay. I'm going for a little bit of a shock here. Now, last year, the Buccaneers shocked everyone by beating the Vikings week 1. And I think this week, they're going to get shocked themselves by being beaten by the Commanders. I think we'll see a game 1. Sometimes you get a quarterback come in, they have a week for their debut where they absolutely ball out. I think I think the Commanders will struggle this year. But I think the week 1, the Buccaneers, who have lost a coordinator, receivers aren't getting any younger. I just think for week 1, the Commanders could shock everyone. I think this is the most likely. I think this is me. You mentioned your biggest shock. I think this is probably my biggest shock of the week is the Commanders beating the Bucs. I really think that this could be, one that, sends a whole world on notice about Jaden Daniels. I think, everyone talking about Caleb Williams, more talking about Bo Nix, and probably more talking about Michael Penix, to be honest, than Jaden Daniels. And I think he's going to put the whole NFL on notice that he is the quarterback that they took second overall from LSU. And I think they're going to shock the world by winning this game. I think something like 27-24. Sam, for you, who's winning this game?
I was really struggling with this one because I think, like you mentioned, I think Jaden Daniels I think he has a chance. I suppose maybe a hot take. I think he has a chance of being rookie MVP this year, or rookie player of the year, should I say? Just purely because he is he's not being seen as the guy. Obviously Caleb's the guy, Marvin Harrison's the guy. I don't know. I just think Jaden Daniels could go under the radar and just ball out. And again, it might not necessarily be that Washington do well, but I think that Jaden Daniels could do well. I think he'll improve that team massively. Having said that, I'm going to go with the Buccaneers win. I just think that there hasn't been a lot of issues in Tampa. I think they've managed to sort of, without using the pun, steady the ship in Tampa. I think they've obviously got their quarterback settled in Baker Mayfield. Mike Evans and Godwin are staying where they are, and obviously will play just as well as they always do. And my surprise running back for this year is Rachaad White, someone who I'm huge on this year. I think he's going to be a really important piece for them. And I just think that they'll just have enough to beat Washington. I think Washington's defense is poor, and I think that's what's going to cost them a lot of games this year, is that their defense is not as good as it could be. So I'm going to stick with a Buccaneers win. Although, it's one of those, if Washington was to win, a bit like Tennessee, Washington did win, it wouldn't be a surprise to me.
No, I didn't like at all Dan Quinn hire. I do believe that, ever since Shanahan left that team as a coordinator, it's been pretty bad for Dan Quinn. And it's the guy who's had Julio Jones as his wide receiver, Matt Ryan as his quarterback, Calais Campbell's been there as well at times. Actually, that was after he left, but he's had some good players, and it was pretty bad the moment Shanahan left, and the moment that 28-3 collapse happened in the Super Bowl. So I don't really rate the hire that much. I know he did well as a coordinator. He did really well with Dallas. I think that could affect Dallas' defense a little bit, but I'm not keen on them going out and getting a guy for their future as their quarterback in a league where every good coach these days seems to be offensive-minded. Going and getting a defensive coach, I don't personally get it. If you want your quarterback to succeed, you want to get him an offensive guy, like we did with getting McDaniel for Tua, or whether it's anyone else who's done that. So I personally don't like the hire, and I think he could be 3 and out. I think you have 3 years there, he won't perform, and I think he'll get fired. Now, before we do your game, I'm going to jump a little bit and save your game for last, just to add to the tension. Monday Night Football, as the 49ers host the Jets. Rodgers, of course, getting a second chance at a Jets debut. But I think the 49ers win. I think they're just all-round, pound for pound. I think if you look at teams pound for pound, position by position, I think it's them, the Lions, or the Ravens for me. And I just think the 49ers is way too strong for most teams. I think it wouldn't shock me. Whether they win the Super Bowl is another question, but I do believe they'll end the season potentially as the number one seed once again. 14 wins, 13 wins. I think they'll start off here against a Jets team that, whilst Rodgers is hopefully, for their fans' sake, back playing healthy for the year, it's basically his first game as a Jet, really. His first game really trying to connect with Garrett Wilson. Didn't play preseason this year, so he hasn't really had that chance to connect with him, except for training, except for practice. And we all know that's not really the true test of an NFL player. So I think there'll be some teething problems there. And they're on the road as well, at one of the fiercest places to go in 49ers. So yeah, I think 49ers win this by 15 points.
Wow. I do agree. I think the Niners are going to win. I think, especially going into this week, sorting out the Ayuk contract, sorting out the Trent Williams contract, which I think is the biggest one that they've sorted out. For me, that is the most important one that they've sorted out. It hurts me to say it that the Niners are so good, but I just think the Niners are going to win. I don't see it being as high as 15 points. I think the Jets defense is really good, and I think, again, similar to how we've talked about the Browns and keeping them in games, and we're good. There's always that age-old classic that offense wins you games and defense wins you championships. I think, if the Jets can get their offense working, if Aaron Rodgers can play to the level that we know he can play to, and can connect with the players that they have, especially with the likes of Breece Hall in the backfield, Garrett Wilson in the downfield, I think they could do quite well this year, especially with the defense there. But the Niners have again, another top 3 defense in the league, and they also have a top 3 offense in the league to match it. I think their window, and again, something we talked about on our podcast this week, is around the Niners window. Well, for us, the Niners Super Bowl window closing. I think this could be their last year with the team that they have to win the Super Bowl. I think that door's going to shut very quickly, especially with other teams around them starting to catch up with them and starting to work their magic. I think they're going to do well this year, as they always will. I put them as the winner of the NFC West. But yeah, I just think that I can't see them losing this game. That's the thing. The difference. If you think about it, like, could they lose it? I just can't see them losing this game. And I think, we could see there is the possibility, if Rodgers is as good as he can be, that he could cause an upset, or at least it could be maybe a high scoring game. But yeah, I think for me, it was when I'm looking at the teams and like the immediate pick, it's straight to the Niners. There's no thinking about it. And so that for me is sort of the telling sign, really.
Yeah, I think you're bang on the money there. Now, heading on to Sunday Night Football, which involves your team and obviously Fletcher's team, but he can't be here, sadly. Lions hosting the Rams. This one is going to be really interesting. Matt Stafford, of course, returning to Detroit once again. Basically, his last 2 games of his career so far will be away to the Lions, whether it's the divisional round last season and now this game opener. So really intriguing. Sam, as it involves your team, I'm going to give you the honours of going first. Is your team winning, or are the Lions getting their home win?
Easy win for the Rams. No, I'm joking. I don't see the Rams winning this one, unfortunately. I'd love to be able to say that we're going to win, but I think, we've done a lot in terms of fixing the defensive side. I know we've got a very young team on the defense, and I think, adding the likes of Tre'Davious White, Cameron Curl, losing Ernest Jones, I just think that we don't have everything there. And again, adding, obviously, losing Raheem Morris, I think I know he got a lot of stick as our DC, but I think they're not ready to deal with an offense as good as the Lions just yet. I think they need a few more years under their belt. I think they need to sign a couple more, and we might get somewhere close. Obviously, losing Aaron Donald's the big thing. I think he would have been the difference maker, I think, as inevitably he always is. But I just think that Detroit Lions offense is electric. I mean, they contain my favorite non-Rams player in Amon-Ra St. Brown, who again, check out the pod for my hot take on Amon-Ra. But I think that they've got enough. I mean, they showed it in the wild card game where they beat us. I think they'll just do the same thing. I think it'll be, we'll put our own across and we'll get a few touchdowns. I think the likes of Cooper Kupp back to full fitness, Matthew Stafford with Kyron Williams and Blake Corum, I think is going to be big in our offense this year. Obviously, Puka's going to have another good year, so I think we'll hold our own. We'll do well in this game, but I just think we don't have enough to stop the Lions. I think that's going to be the big telling part, is we just can't stop them. And I think our O-line's a bit banged up going into this first game, and we're playing. Obviously, we took Jonah Jackson off the Lions. But he is apparently going to be playing centre because he's got a potential shoulder injury, which he's nursing at the moment. And our starting left tackle, Alaric Jackson's obviously out for the first 2 games of suspension. So we're having a bit of a rejig at the moment in the offensive line. So I think that could cause a few problems. So yeah, I just think the way that the game is set up to go, Stafford's. I think it's probably going to be a nicer atmosphere for Stafford going back than it was in the wildcard game. And it's sort of his, I suppose, home return. But I just don't. The Lions are just too good. I've got them again. I've got them going to the Super Bowl. I think they're just that good. So, yeah, I think they'll be the team to beat this year for me.
Fair enough. And that is all our predictions done. So we went for 5 games with different predictions. So I went for the Chiefs winning the opener. Sam went for the Ravens. I went for the Titans to beat the Bears. Sam went for the Bears. I went for the Browns, so the Browns to lose to the Cowboys. Sam said they'd win. I went for the Commanders to beat the Bucks. Sam went for the Bucks. And that is actually all of them. Only 4, not 5. And then apart from that, we both went for wins for the Packers, Falcons, Bills, Bengals, Texans, Dolphins, Saints, Vikings, Raiders, Seahawks, Lions, and Niners. That is the end of our week 1 preview with myself, your host, Andy Davis, and guest today, Sam Andrews. Sam, pleasure having you on once again.
Yes, and thank you for inviting me. Obviously, shame we couldn't have had Fletch here, but hopefully we are meant to be filming our college one tonight, so hopefully, fingers crossed, you won't have a 7-hour wait in A&E to get sorted.
Yeah, I think he told me about 5 o'clock. He was told 3 hours by an A&E. Now, he said, I think it's a perfect thing. And I know myself actually working myself in a hospital that, they tell you 3 hours, but you could be there 10. So he could be missing your one. Well, hopefully he doesn't for your podcast sake. But hopefully he gets better, and hopefully he'll be, alive and kicking when he comes on for the podcast on, I believe, it'll be Tuesday or Wednesday. He'll come on to review week 1 in the NFL and reviewing, of course, mainly the Lions against the Rams. But yeah, thank you all for listening or watching this podcast, and we'll see you guys